You are entering the final room of your graduate career. You carry years of data collection, hundreds of pages, and a finished dissertation. Many candidates step into this space assuming the oral defense is a condensed recap of their written document. That assumption often leads to a specific kind of paralysis. Even students who know their data perfectly can find themselves frozen when the committee begins to probe beneath the surface of the text. The committee has already read your timeline of events. In the room, they are there to pressure test your methodology, scrutinize your decision-making, and challenge the boundaries of your study. A presentation focused on a linear summary leaves your research architecture exposed. It provides the what when the committee is entirely concerned with the why. Dr. Philip Edu, a methodology expert, views this disconnect as the primary hurdle for candidates. From his perspective, defense failures stem from a finite, predictable set of structural flaws in how the research is framed and defended. He identifies these flaws as the 8 errors, a specific taxonomy of traps that can derail a defense regardless of the raw data's quality. Mapping these 8 errors allows you to replace generalized anxiety with a targeted, systematic defensive protocol. Identifying these failure points shifts your role from a passive presenter to an active defender of your own methodological authority. Visualize the committee's questioning as incoming attacks. If the center is your research, these nodes represent 8 threat vectors. The first category targets methodological vulnerabilities. Error 1 is explaining how you executed a method instead of justifying why it was the only correct choice. A weak defense recites a checklist of software used for coding. A strong defense argues why a phenomenological approach was the necessary path to answer the core research question. Error 2 is ignoring alternative methodologies. Failing to address the paths you chose not to take leaves you vulnerable when the committee asks why you rejected them. You preempt this by proactively acknowledging limitations and explicitly stating why competing methods were discarded during your design phase. Error 3 is a disconnect between your data collection and your ultimate analysis. Any fracture between how you gathered data and how you analyzed it invites the committee to question the validity of your entire dataset. Securing these 3 fundamental vulnerabilities addresses the committee's deepest suspicions before they even have to ask a single question. Once the internal logic is secure, the committee will test the external boundaries of your findings. This second category involves scope creep and alignment. Error 4 is overgeneralization. This happens when a candidate implies their data has universal applications that exceed what their specific sample size actually supports. Drawing sweeping conclusions from bounded qualitative or quantitative data quickly undermines your credibility in the room. Error 5 is taking the bait. This occurs when a committee member asks a speculative question that falls entirely outside the parameters of your study. Firm, do not guess. The defensive countermeasure is to respectfully state the question exceeds your current data and guide the conversation back to your empirical findings. Error 6 is a misalignment between your original research questions and the final answers you present on screen. You must maintain a strict one-to-one mapping between what your study promised to investigate and the exact answers you deliver in your conclusion. A disciplined scope functions as a shield, focusing the room entirely on the territory you have actually verified. The final cluster of errors concerns the physical delivery and visual framing of your work. These represent presentational bloat and mismanagement. Error 7 is data density. Many candidates pack their slides with text, assuming that complexity conveys academic rigor. Overwhelming visual data forces the committee to read rather than listen. This causes you to lose oral control of the room. Error 8 is poor pacing. Candidates often spend half their time on the literature review, leaving almost no room to discuss their original findings. You must ruthlessly edit your presentation to prioritize your own methodology and results over background context the committee already knows. Presentational discipline ensures the committee remains focused on the areas where you are most prepared to lead the discussion. This completed ring represents the prepared candidate. By mapping these 8 points, you have accounted for the interrogation before it even begins. This preparation removes the unpredictability of the defense by proactively closing the structural vulnerabilities the committee is trained to find. Securing these gaps replaces the usual defensive panic with the clarity of knowing exactly where your intellectual boundaries lie. Anticipating these 8 vectors strips the committee of the element of surprise. Before you practice your script again, take a step back. Audit your current presentation against these 8 specific vectors. Find the factors in your justification, your scope, and your pacing, and address them. As Dr. Adu's framework highlights, identifying these errors is the only reliable way to systematically avoid them. Your objective in this room is the clear demonstration of your methodological authority. A successful defense relies on strategic design, ensuring that your data is supported by an unbreakable structural architecture.